Welcome to another demo with Stamp Anything. Today we're going to make a cute spring ladybug inspired card. So we are using our Jane Hello stamp and we are coloring in her skin tone using our light skin tone of E04, E11, E21, E00, and E000. We always begin our skins doing the body parts, and then we go into doing the face. And we always do 2 layers of skin just to make sure we get a really good blend on our paper using the combination that we choose. So the video is obviously sped up in speed coloring for demonstration purposes. For full coloring, you can always join us at the Expo's Mega Make and Takes, where all of our projects are in real time. You can also join us in our Stamp Anything Stampers page group, where we have live color streams that are also in real time, and also in our Color University online coloring classes. But for our little demos here, they are sped up just so that we can get in our time for our slot. And so we are now on our face layer of our skin, and coloring is very repetitive. You do your first layer, getting those markers to start saturating your paper, and then you do a second layer. So the paper is activated, and then your blends for everything just go more smooth, and you get just an overall balance better of your markers that you're using. So again, this is our skin combo for our light skin tone. It is E04, E11, E21, E00, and E000. I always just add a little bit of color for the cheeks on my characters, and I'm just blending that out now at this phase in the demo, and just blending out those cute little cheeks. And then her skin is done. So now we're going to start in doing her hair, and for this we're going to make her a brunette with a little bit of a honey blonde highlight. So we're using our E59 for our darkest roots. And then we're going in and extending with our E57, and then we repeat this with our E33 and then our E31. And then we just go over the blend with our Y35 just to give her a little bit of a honey tone to her hair coloring. And then again, same thing here. We go over and we do 2 layers of the coloring, just to make sure we get nice smooth blends. Most of our stamps are drawn in with a lot of lines on their hair, which is really great for those just starting out and learning how to color hair. There's not a lot of guesswork of which direction you should be pulling your lines down. You just follow the drawn lines that are already put on the stamp. Straight hair is the easiest. Long straight hair is going to give you the best blends, because it's just flicking in one direction and connecting your colors together. When you start getting into your waves and your curls, that's where you have to be a little bit more conscious of where you're adding those shades and highlights. So straight hair is a really great stamp idea for you to start if you are just beginning in your coloring journey. And stamps that have lines built in help you to guide you where your flow of your marker blends are going to go. If you just have a big all open space, you're taking the work of trying to figure out the flow of where you want the colors to be laid down. So now we're going to start in on our little ladybug outfit, and I'm just using a series of different R's for this. R's are the most, I personally find, unforgiving of all the colors in Copic markers. just like our color in food coloring when you're baking and everything, ours is the one that tends to be the hardest with staining and things of that nature. So when an R bleeds, it's harder to clean up than a different color blend. But if you use a great color blend, reds are actually very royal and rich, and they're very, very beautiful when you're able to put them together in the right combination and get a really good tone for the shading with your R's. So we're just using R39, R37, R17, R08, and R22 to do the bodice and the skirt of our little ladybug girl. And then we're going to also do the little wings on her dress, also in R's, but we're going to eliminate the darker colors just so that they read a slightly different shade, so that you can have that variation in the reds in seeing them, as opposed to having it all in the same color family. So we just used our 3 lightest reds to do the side pieces of the little ladybug on her skirt. And now we're just going to go ahead and give her some red little shoes. And we're just going to be doing quick hits of 3 colors to make a little shadowed area on her shoe. And then we're going to go into her socks on her wings, and we use our B01, B02, and then our colorless blender to feather it out to give it a nice soft tone. And we want these spaces to still be kind of open and airy for her wings, so we're not going crazy with our details on this little project here. This is just a super quick, easy, styled coloring. I'm not doing any crazy techniques on it. I'm just coloring her very simply, but I want to keep those wings from at least looking still like they are nice and open. And then my white gel dot to put some color into her eyes. Now for my card construction, I decided to go back to old school A2. I know slim lines are all the rage right now, but I wanted to do just a regular A2 card. So I had a card base, and then I cut out 3 coordinating colors of cardstock for my mats. I have my open circle mat die. I cut them out in chipboard to make my my shaker. And you can see I took this chipboard and I layered it 5 or 6 times to get to the depth of a want. Now remember, not all dies are going to be shaker dies, but you can turn your dies into shakers. And that's what I'm doing here with this. This is not a shaker die, but I'm going to turn it into one. So I'm going to first go ahead and start matting up the layers of my card base. So I'm first taking an A2 size piece of black cardstock, and I'm simply going to adhere that and glue it to the base of my card. And just because I want to keep this card very clean and simple, I'm sticking to red, white, and black, just like I did on my girl, just to keep it very, very simple. So I'm now just going to adhere this black mat. It's a full size to cover the entire, my entire card base. Then I went ahead and I took a piece of red foil cardstock and I cut this slightly smaller than my black cardstock so I can have a border of that black showing through. And I'm just going to adhere my glue and I'm going to center that right on top of the black mat that I just put down. And it's just so I can start creating layers. So I'm actually going to have a triple mat on the front of my card. And then I'm taking a piece, I cut a piece of white cardstock, smaller than the red, again, just so that I can have that border again. I'm adhering my glue, and then I'm just going to center that to the top of the red foil mat. So now I have 3 layered mats of that black, red foil, and white for the front of my card. So again, I'm not doing any special stenciling or techniques. Now I took my chipboard cut out of my die that I layered about 5 or 6 times in chipboard, and then I also cut out the red for the top. Then I traced it to a solid black so that I can make the back part of my shaker. Again, you have to just trace it because these are not shakers, so they're not going to come with that bottom part. And I just hand cut it around as best as I can. And now I am trying to figure out which hole, there we go, lines up with what. And now I can go ahead and glue the channel walls of my chipboard to the bottom of what I am making as my shaker. So again, this is not a shaker card. This is just our open circle matte die, but I thought it would be really cute mimicking the circles on Ladybugs and doing it in the color that I wanted to turn this into a shaker. And you can do that with practically any of the dies that you have. You just have to make sure that you have your base piece, your layered channel pieces, your top piece, and of course your acetate sheet. So those you just have to hand cut because the die will not cut that for you, as opposed to if you're using a die that actually is a shaker die. So I'm just lining this up, making sure I have it all adhered well, and I have no gaps. And I'm just closing the back of my shaker. I'm not worried about the glue showing through because it's going to dry clear. And then I have my top piece that I cut out in the matching foil. And I have some of our flower daisy adornments. And then I need the piece of acetate to make my window underneath my top piece. And then I'm just going to hand trim that. So I'm just going to set that aside. And now I'm going to add my glue to the back of my top piece of my cutout die, which is going to now act as my window piece. And you can probably now see what I'm trying to create here with all of these little circles, making them all into little windows for shaker pieces. And now I'm just adhering that to my acetate. And I just want to make sure I get a good seal with the glue. And the acetate is obviously, it's a slippery surface. So I do want to wait until this is dried before I go ahead and trim around the outer edges because I don't want it to shift and be slippery. So I am going to wait until that dries. And once it is, then I can come back in and cut it. So now I have adhered my acetate and trimmed it around the edges. And now I'm going to go ahead and put in our cute little daisy flower spring sprinkles. And I am just going to be putting them in all of the different channels of the die to create multiple windows and channels for all the shaker bits. And you can do this with different flowers in each of yours, or you can add sequins, you can add glitter, you can do and dress this up any way that you want. Just making sure in my smaller area circles, I'm not overloading with shaker bits. And then I'm also just tapping it so that they all start to lie flat. So when I add that top piece to it, they're all in a single layer, so I won't get puckers with my acetate. And then I can just go ahead and I'll be able to adhere my window to my base with my shaker bits. So I'm just getting my glue, and now I'm going around and making sure I have everything connected with the glue so that when I put that top piece on, none of the shaker bits are going to be jumping from one window section to another. They'll each be contained into their own area. And again, look at the dies that you have. Some of them, if you like making shakers and you don't have budgets to buy all the shaker dies that are out there, you can make shakers with what you already own and use your dies in new and unique ways. So again, this was a card mat die. This is not a shaker die, but I transformed it for what I wanted it to be. And now I'm going to take that top piece and I am going to carefully line it up and layer it on top of my shaker bottom. I'm just tapping it lightly. Acetate sometimes is very staticky, that your shakers will cling to it. And now I am just making sure that it's equally aligned on top of my front piece. And then I'm going to go back and just make sure I get a really good pressured seal with my top piece to my base. And I am just adhering that down, making sure I get a really good connection. And then I can allow this to dry and there's glue that seeps out in some areas, and that's fine. So I'm trying not to shake my card until those glue pieces dry so that shaker bit won't get stuck in that one little area. But once that part's dry, then I can go ahead and adhere it to the front of my card when I figure out the placement of what I want to do with that. So I am going to now let that dry and then come back, and we're going to go ahead and adhere it to the front of our card. Okay, so now that our part is dried, we're going to go ahead and add our adhesive to the bottom of our completed shaker. And I am going to affix this to the front panel of my A2 card. And I'm just going to pretty much center it as best as I can. And then I'm just going to push down to make sure I get a nice adhere. And then I'm going to get my little colored image, and I'm going to take some foam strips, and I'm just going to go ahead and add some foam to the back side of this colored image. Get that set up. And then I also want to put some on her feet, but my foam tape is a little too wide for her feet. So I am going to trim off that little piece. I'm going to cut my foam piece in half lengthwise so that I can adhere a piece to each of her legs. And I'm going to add one more piece of foam tape to the opposite side of her body here that I missed. Okay. Now that she's nice and even, I can go ahead and remove my foam tape, release backing piece. So just grab those off of your project. And when you cut the foam piece down, getting the backing piece off is a little bit trickier than when they're in their full size. So I'm just removing on these back sides of her leg. And I'm going to place her on my card. I don't really want to cover too many of the circles with the shakers in there. And I'm just going to make sure she is adhered to the front of the card. And there we have our cute little springtime ladybug card mat transformed into a shaker card for you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day.